What's going on, everybody, and welcome to GNR Central. And today I want to talk about the last recording sessions that featured Axl, Slash, and Duff. This one dates back all the way to late 1996, just before Slash left the band in October of 96. So before we talk about that time period, we have to go back a bit, about a year or so. Slash was out on the tour, out on the road with Snake Pit. He was promoting his first Snake Pit record, It's 5 O'Clock Somewhere. And during that time, Gilby had been fired in late 94. It took them a couple of years before they really found a replacement guitarist who would replace Gilby. It seemed like, according to Doug Goldstein, Paul Tobias was only a temporary replacement until Slash and Duff found somebody else. They did try out Zakk Wylde for a bit in early 95, but things didn't work out during that 2-week period, largely because Zakk and Slash are both lead guitar players. And these are some interviews that Slash gave around that time where he really expressed his displeasure with Paul Tobias, who was a close personal friend of Axl, but Slash didn't feel like he had the chops to be in Guns N' Roses.
It is true that Gilby is no longer
Gilby's no longer with us, no. I mean, he's with Snake Pit, but he's not with Guns.
Okay, and there's a new guitarist that's been hired? Not at all? Because I'd heard rumors that there was somebody...
Well, there's a couple guys. There was an idiot Paul, and then...
What are you trying Paul Hughes? Paul Hughie. Hughie. Huge.
And then we jammed with Zakk, but Zack's like he's a good friend, so we've just been jamming. We haven't made some sort of finalized decision as to who's going to be the new guitar player.
So
he's just a good friend that we jammed with, because now that Gilby's not in the band, Axl was like, well, what about Zakk? You like Zakk, right? And I was like, well, yeah, but we don't sound right. It doesn't sound right with like two heavy lead guitar players. There's no, like, the off. Usually Guns N' Roses has an off rhythm and a main lead sort of riff, and so now me and Zakk just play the same thing.
Right.
But that's just because we're both lead guitar players. So as much as I love Zakk, we haven't made any decision. I told Axl, I said, look, I'm going to be gone till August touring with Snake Pit. We'll talk about it when I get back. Wait. I hate that guy. That's Paul. That's a whole nother story.
So by late July of 1996, Axl was trying to lure Slash back to Guns N' Roses to start work on a new record. So in a chat he gave online in July of 1996, he said, Axl and I have been meeting recently and everything's progressing. And in Slash's book, he basically said, one time Axl called me for a private meeting at his favorite Italian restaurant in Brentwood. As far as I can remember, the meeting was basically an attempt to coerce me into accepting the arrangement he and his lawyers were pushing, but in a lot less heavy-mannered. And at that point in time, Slash had basically stated that Axl and I are having a very civil relationship as we speak. He went on to say there's a couple of meetings like that in Doug Goldstein's office. Then, of course, there were endless meetings with attorneys going over this and going over that thing. Axl pushed this contract issue on us with so much pressure to the point that Duff and I just gave in. And he went on to say, I really have no idea what's going on with the next Guns N' Roses CD. I still haven't played with them yet. So that was as of July of 1996. Now, in August of 1996, he gave an interview to MTV where he provided an update on what was going on with Guns N' Roses. Here's what he had to say.
As far as Guns N' Roses is concerned, as of yesterday, we've actually, we've sort of concealed our contract. So we're in working order, as they say.
Yeah. Well, that's really good news. We'll talk.
Well, in contrast to everything that's been going out in the press, which I've been hearing a lot of, and it's like Guns is in the studio, or Guns is this, or Guns is that, or I'm hanging up by handcuffs in a hotel room. I mean, basically, we've all been working. And so now at this point, we're actually going to formate ourselves and get to work.
Have you actually got any new songs written or any ideas got together?
We have tons of songs between the three existing members, like Duff and Axl and I. We've got probably about 80 songs. We just haven't sat down and actually done it because there's been so much political crap going on, and I know kids don't want to know about it, but it does go on in this business, and sometimes you have to deal with it directly because there's no other way around it. And so we finally took the bull by the horns and just said, look, we don't want to fuck around anymore, let's just do it. And so that's.
But are those politics coming from within the band or outside the band?
They come
both
from everywhere.
So around the time that Slash was set to go back into the studio with Guns N' Roses, he was also busy working on another project. He was actually scoring a movie soundtrack for Quentin Tarantino. So he was working on some songs for the movie Curdled that he was basically working on. He was splitting time between Guns N' Roses and this film for Quentin Tarantino. So in his autobiography, he said, when Miramax asked me to do the soundtrack to the Quentin Tarantino-produced film Curdled, I immediately agreed. I put hours into working out the music, which is instrumental, all acoustic, eclectic, and flamenco-influenced. I recorded the instrumental stuff with Jed Leiber, who was a great engineer I knew from LA. I flew out to New York, where Nile Rodgers produced the electric versions of a few tracks. Then he and I flew out to Spain to have the major Spanish star Martha Sanchez do vocals. So we interviewed Dave Dominguez, who worked with Slash on these sessions, and revealed how Slash was basically exhausted coming in, working on the Curdled stuff, and then going with Guns N' Roses, and how Slash even basically dropped hints that things were falling apart with Guns N' Roses. Here's the clip.
So I didn't have any run-ins with them, but until I started working with them, and I think the first person I worked with was Slash on a Quentin Tarantino thing.
Oh, was that Curdled?
I don't even know. It was. I know that he was. This was probably a month before he left the band. They were doing rehearsals for. They had always done rehearsals. I guess they were trying, writing new stuff at the place called the Complex in LA. And then he was coming in during the day, and he was recording a song for a Tarantino movie. And I couldn't tell you the movie. I don't even know. That was a long time ago. So he would come in and do his thing and work all day, and then we'd be done, and then he would go to GNR rehearsals at night.
Okay, so the man never quits. The man never quits. I don't know how he finds time to sleep.
Right. Yeah, no, he just worked. He just come in and have lunch as he didn't even stop to eat. He would eat as he played. All right, let's let him take, and then have a few bites. All right, let's do one more. Then have a few bites and then literally leave and then go to GNR, and he was just I know he was burnt by the end of the week. I know he was just man, I needed more than 2 hours of sleep.
Yeah, did he ever talk about how the rehearsals were going when he was working on the Tarantino film?
No, but I do remember him saying, I hope he doesn't get me. They're together now, so it doesn't really matter. But I do remember him saying, if I'm in this band in a week, I'll be surprised. He would just had it.
Wow.
He had, I'm not going to mention who, but he complained about, a certain new member, that was bad timing, this and that, and I just can't deal with it anymore, and that was it. And maybe you do. And then so within, I don't know, it was maybe less than a month later, the MTV thing where he sent a fax to MTV and said he quit the band. He came on and wow, cool. I guess I knew I had warning. Wow. Yeah, but he was a sweetheart. He was a great guy. He was really nice, very polite.
So in late September of 1996, during those Guns N' Roses sessions, Slash flew out to New York City and did the Howard Stern show, and the topic of what was going on with Guns N' Roses came up, and here's what Slash had to say.
What the hell's going on? Just clear this up for us real quick. Everyone who's a fan of Guns N' Roses, a great band. Is it really going to happen? I mean, it's ridiculous.
You know what? We're working on it.
You are?
You're in the studio.
I've been there for the last 3.5 weeks.
You have?
Yeah.
Where is this studio?
It's
in New York?
It's in L.A.
Oh, it's in L.A.
Yeah.
And there's a studio where you guys regularly get together?
Yeah.
And what happens? Nobody does anything? Everyone just kind of...
No, we all go there. Basically,
tell me what happens.
We get there at 11 o'clock at night.
Right.
And then we go to a local
bar,
something like that.
Yeah.
Around the corner, and about 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, we get working. We work till about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
So there is actual band work going on.
People talk about all kinds of stuff.
Right. You're making it sound like so much work to be a rock star, though.
No.
Just imagine that your day starts at 11 p.m.
I love that. Don't you love that?
My day starts at 10 a.m. and then Guns starts at 11 p.m.
Because it kind of reminds me of the Stones. To me, I always think of Slash as like Keith Richards. He always wants to be working, wants to have the band going.
Yeah, he's cool. He wants to tour. He wants to do
I drink
it all.
a lot of these things.
What is that?
It's coffee.
Coffee?
This is amazing. He comes in here with iced coffee in the morning.
Yeah. But you know what I mean? You kind of remind me of like Keith Richards. You want to keep the band working. You're a sensible guy.
Listen.
You got something good going on. And Axl reminds me of like Mick Jagger. Like, you know, like he wants to go off and do something.
The solo thing.
Yeah.
The best rock and roll line I ever heard was from Keith. And it was because Axl showed up late in Atlantic City.
Right.
And Keith went, you know, I slept in a chandelier last night, and I made it.
And I'm here.
And it was classic, you know, at the time, you know. And Axl really does try, but he, you know, he's got his own.
What's going on with him? What does he do? Is he married? No, he's divorced from that girl.
No, I actually tell you the truth. We just got reacquainted, so it's been a.
You hadn't seen each other in a year or so?
It's been like 3 years.
3 years.
You really hadn't even laid eyes on him?
What's going on? Tell me the truth. What's really going on?
No, I was gone.
No, you weren't gone. He was gone.
No, he wasn't gone. He was in L.A.
Where were you?
I was out playing.
No, you were willing to get together with Guns N' Roses.
No, let's not get into all that.
Of course, man. I never understand when...
They won't get into it.
When somebody has a great band... You know what the odds of having a great band are?
And the way that band...
1 billion to 1.
Took off.
Yeah, and Guns N' Roses is a popular band. People would buy a record if they put one out.
Yeah, but, okay.
They would go see you on tour. It doesn't make sense.
All things considered, you know, bands have there's a lot of intricate little tiny things that are going on from
interscene battles.
I would say emotional stuff between the members of the band, like in a family.
Like Axl's sick of looking at you and you're sick of looking at him?
Well, I wouldn't go as far as to say all that.
Really? But
no,
it's close.
But, I mean,
but they were
we have a conflict of interest.
Really? Were you both into the same chick or something?
Conflict of interest, both into the same chick?
Yeah, I mean, what's the conflict of interest? What is the conflict of interest?
How does that work?
I don't know. What is it, a business conflict of interest?
No, it's just, you know, not like having a meeting of the mind sometimes.
Right,
on music?
Yeah.
I can't believe that.
Well, how could you not believe that? Every band has it.
No, you come in there. How does it usually work? You write the music, he writes the words?
No, if it was that simple, then we'd have sort of a job detail. No,
right.
It never works that easily. It's a matter of sitting down with somebody that you love very much and like going, you know, let's try this, and he goes, yeah, it's a great idea, or
yeah, let's be open to it.
But it doesn't always work that way.
Right.
Sometimes he just says, no, that sucks, I don't want to do that.
And then you go, hey man, that's not fair. That's like I think it is good, and then you get into an argument.
What exactly happened at those rehearsals? So according to Slash's book, he said Doug had set us up at a studio called the Complex, which we later dubbed the Compound. Axl and I hadn't spoken directly at all since my return, either by phone or face-to-face. I got my working orders from Doug. He said I went back to Guns for like 12 rehearsals on the forthcoming Guns N' Roses record to reestablish the band and where it was headed, Slash said. My memories of it are hazy at best because I did everything I could to forget. I do remember going into the studio and rehearsing with no direction. Slash recalled that the staff was hospitable and robotic as a bunch of bellboys at a 5-star hotel. So what would you want to play on? I remember some guy asking. What do you mean? We have a wide selection of guitars here, the guy said. Which one would you like to use? And to which Slash said, I brought my own. I said, I'd like to play on that one. So Slash said the gear was set up nice, literally room full of synths, as well as an arsenal of Pro Tools recording rigs that Axl had rented. So according to Slash, the rehearsals would basically go like this. We'd show up at different times every evening, but by 8 p.m. generally everybody in the band would be there. I got down there the first night around 8 p.m. and found my tech, Adam Day, Duff's tech, McBob, Duff, Dizzy Reed, and Matt and Paul Hughie. Axl was nowhere in sight. We'd spend each night in the studio maybe writing music or jamming. Most nights we'd sit around frustrated waiting to see if Axl would show, which he did usually around 1 or 2 a.m. after most of us had left for the night. Generally, I'd get home around 3 a.m. And according to Duff, typically the rehearsals would go from midnight to 5 in the morning. After a few days, I chose to spend my evenings at the strip bar around the corner with orders for the engineers to call me if Axl decided to show up. And when Axl did show up at rehearsal, he never sang, said Slash. So at that point in time, Axl was the rhythm guitar on his own songs for the time being. So according to Slash, we were supposed to jam until Axl said, I like this or I like that. We'd play for an hour or more and then finally get bored and go home, leaving Axl in the studio by himself. So just before Slash was on the verge of quitting the band, he told a story in his book how one particular evening after they were done for the day, I went to dinner with Keith Richards of the Stones. I'd been at the studio rehearsing all day, so when the conversation swung around to my band, I let it all out. Keith took it all in and looked at me deep in the eye and said, listen, There's one thing you never do, you never leave. Keith inspired me. I feel like I had to try even harder, and the next day I tried to refocus my outlook, and I showed up at the complex ready to make it work at all costs. Axl never showed up to rehearse, and the attorney's negotiation of our employment contracts had taken a really insulting turn. So by the middle of October, Slash said in an interview that him and Axl were basically reevaluating their working relationship, and he was basically out of the band. And even after Slash left, he said that many in the band thought he was joking or he wasn't serious. And in his book, he said that Axl contacted those closest to me, telling them I should change my mind. He called my dad, my security guard, my wife, Renee, and told each of them that I was making the biggest mistake in my life. He said that I was pissing away so much money because of my decision. So Slash even recalled in a 2000 interview that the last time I talked to Axl was on the phone. I think he was going to sue me at the time, and he recalls his last words to Axl was basically, "I'm done." And finally, that does it for this episode, and here's the MTV report talking about Slash leaving Guns N' Roses.
As far as the rest of the group was concerned, apparently, Guns N' Roses were back together and back in action.
Well, I've been back in Guns N' Roses for the last 3 weeks. So we're just writing stuff and reacquainting each other with each other.
But Axl's fax, addressed from Burning Hills, California, with what he bewilderingly calls a dive-in and find the monkey attitude, announces that unless the band gets its act together, at least by his lights, there will be no more Guns N' Roses tours, websites, videos, merchandise, or even a fan club. However, since Axl Rose owns the name Guns N' Roses, there will be a new Guns album out, with or without present personnel, next summer. 12 new album tracks minimum, plus 3 new B-sides for singles. The harshest part of Rose's missive, however, concerns Slash, whose guitar has been a key component of the classic Guns sound, but whose relationship with Axl has always been a bit strained, apparently, as the singer revealed after the group recorded its Use Your Illusion albums.
We don't really hang that much, but we call each other up on the phone to tell each other what we did. You know, we're best friends even though we have separate lives.
In his fax, Axl says Slash hasn't been musically involved in Guns N' Roses since April of 1994 and hasn't been a part of the band's business partnership since last December 31st. Rose then calls upon McKagan and Sorum to renounce what he calls the pseudo-studio musician work ethic. According to Guns N' Roses sources, Axl Rose wants the band's music to grow and evolve, and he felt Slash was committed to the group's old, now classic sound. In a statement to MTV News, Slash said, quote, "Axl and I have not been capable of seeing eye to eye on Guns N' Roses for some time. We recently tried to collaborate, but at this point, I'm no longer in the band. I'd like to think we could work together in the future if we were able to work out our differences."
Well, Slash's future plans are unclear at the moment, although it's believed he will continue with his many side projects.
Hey, this is Dizzy Reed from Guns N' Roses, and you're watching GNR Central. Yeah!